Hello, welcome to Bio 3. We will start ecology. We will have three lectures about ecology. The first one we will talk about ecosystem. So we'll give you a brief overview about ecosystem. So this is a definition of ecology. It's a study of the interaction of organisms with each other and the physical environment. So based on this definition, you have two character or two major player. One is the organism, one is the physical environment. So you need these two to study ecology. So ecology involves these level of several level of study. Well, I would say organization. So when we have organism is basically individual animal, but when we have a group of organisms that are the same species, then the same species of organism, they will form population. And then when you have different population, that means different population, that means different species grouped together. When you have different population of different species together, then we form community. When we have different community, you can form the ecosystem. And then when you have multiple ecosystem, then you have biosphere. Biosphere is basically the entire Earth. So let's take a look at the level of organization. So in here we have individual organism. When the individual organism group with other individual organism of the same species, okay, then they form a population. When you have multiple populations, see, this is one type of fish, and then you have another type of fish, and then you have the coral reef here. So you have at least 3 population here, then you form a community. And then when you have multiple community together, so this is one community, okay, and then it shows you the ocean, because in the ocean you have multiple community for sure. Then you form an ecosystem. So this is a definition, adaptation of organism to the environment. Organism, populations, all member of a species, okay, same species, and then multiple population in a particular area. And a community and its physical environment, okay, it has to have a physical environment. So it is biotic and abiotic. Abiotic is the physical environment. So what's the goal of studying ecology? We want to develop models, okay, models of ecology to explain and predict the distribution and abundance of population and species. So it helps us to predict. The model is to help us to predict and explain population and species. It's not just meaning that ecology is a descriptive science, but in addition to that, it tests the hypothesis and also experimental manipulation. So is this very scientific? It's very science. They also do experiment. The testable hypothesis and doing experiment, it fits into our scientific method that we cover during the first lesson. So there are two goals. Okay, one is develop a reliable model to predict and explain population and species. Another one is to develop a hypothesis and do experiment. So ecosystem, the abiotic component include sunlight. Sunlight is very important because it is the ultimate source of all energy on the earth. And then inorganic nutrient, we'll talk about something like phosphorus cycle, nitrogen cycle, etc. In the second lesson. Water, yes, water cycle, temperature, wind, and soil. So all these are abiotic components. The physical environment. Biotic components are the different populations of the organism that form a community. It's basically what we talk about the organization, different level of organization. They are composed of animals. So the abiotic component, okay, sunlight. Rain is a form of water, and then we have water to form a ocean, river, or lake. And we have wind. Wind is basically air in between, and then we have soil. Soil, basically it has the animal live on the soil and also inside the soil. You have animal also live in the water, and you also have animal living in the sky. You do have microorganism live in the rain and clouds. So the biotic component, well, I already mentioned there is a populations of organism. You know, there are as I told you, the same species of organism, they form a population. When you have multiple population, that means you have multiple species living together. That forms a community. Yes. So the biotic component, you can see that we have a producer. No, they are the producer. Yeah, producer. They are the one who can make their food through photosynthesis. They can make sugar and through photosynthesis. Then you have the herbivore. Herbivore, usually they are the primary consumer. The reason is that they usually eat the producer. And then you have carnivore. Carnivore, they are the secondary consumer or higher, because they eat the herbivore or they eat other carnivore. And then you have decomposer. So when the living organism, like the producer, primary consumer, the herbivore, and the tertiary or higher consumer carnivore, when they die, the detritivore, the decomposer, living in the soil, they will break down the living organism so that the nutrient stored in their body can be recycled back to the nature. Oh, okay, we have this. Producer, also called autotroph, because they make their food, their own food. Auto, it's like automatically. Troph means a feeding. So they make their own food. Consumer or primary consumer, they are herbivore. They eat the producer, the autotroph. Most of the producer, they are plants, but some of the producers, they are the prokaryote unicellular organism that have that can do photosynthesis. The secondary consumer, they are carnivores because they eat the primary consumers. And then decomposers, they are the detrivores. They are the one that so-called, by breaking down the dead body of the carnivore, herbivore, or autotroph, they get the nutrient from the dead body. And in this case, they also help to recycle the nutrients stored in the body of producer, primary consumer, secondary consumers back to the nature. And in our second lecture about the biochemical cycles in the nature, you will learn about those as well. So the biotic component, we'll talk about each one now. Autotroph or producer, they require an energy source and inorganic nutrient to produce organic food. Okay, let me ask you a question. What will be the energy source? Let me give you 5 seconds to think about this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, time's up. The energy source, of course, is the sun. And then inorganic nutrient. Can you come up with any inorganic nutrient that you have learned from photosynthesis? Let me give you another 5 seconds to think about this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Okay, 5 seconds. That is the inorganic nutrient. For example, in photosynthesis, plant takes in carbon dioxide and water. These are like the inorganic nutrient that autotroph or producer, they will take to do photosynthesis. And last but not least, what are the organic food molecule that we're talking about here? Okay, I'm not giving you time to think. Okay, if you remember photosynthesis, you will know that the product of photosynthesis is sugar. Okay. It manufactures organic nutrient for all organism. So this organic nutrient is also the glucose that we talk about in the photosynthesis. Remember carry out photosynthesis? Yes, we learned about photosynthesis before. Some bacteria, they are chemotroph. Chemotroph meaning that they also make their own food, but they use a different method, not photosynthesis. Hydrothermal vent. So these bacteria, they are the archaebacteria. Remember archaebacteria, they live in extreme environment. So these are the living organism that can do photosynthesis. For example, vascular plant, which is the so-called plant that we see every day. And then we have cyanobacteria. They are the blue-green algae. Remember blue-green algae? They are the cyanobacteria. And then we have the algae. Okay, and this is the coral. Coral, they are, as you know, that they are the plant living in the ocean. And I don't know if you remember what I told you. The ocean is actually the major photosynthesis is the major photosynthesis source. It produces the majority of oxygen. So if we keep on polluting the ocean and killing all the plants, an animal in the ocean, we are basically killing ourselves. Okay, populations of an ecosystem. And then we'll continue after the producer or autotroph. We will start with heterotroph, which are consumers. Heterotroph means feeding. Hetero means different. So they feed on different animal. So they need to perform. They need a preformed source of. Need a preformed source of organic nutrient, such as the glucose formed by the plants. We have herbivore meaning that they eat on plants or algae. Carnivore, they eat on other animal, meat lovers, Omnivore, eat on both plant and animal. Theoretically, human being, we are omnivore, but a lot of human beings like us, we like to eat meat only. Yeah, I do have some friends, they only eat meat. It's very interesting, they don't have constipation. So I sometimes laugh at them as a carnivore. And then, of course, we have vegetarians. It would be politically incorrect if we call vegetarian as herbivore. Yeah, unless they are your close friend, you can joke with them about this. So herbivore, plant eaters. So as you can see that all these are herbivore, including the caterpillar here. Caterpillar is a herbivore. Carnivore, flesh eater, all these are carnivore. The eagle, okay, the bear, the lion, okay, even the spider. Or what, this is a dragonfly? Looks like a dragonfly. All these are carnivore.